Here is TD Memories, who we're just calling TD, and this is just an absolutely gorgeous 16 2.5 hand 3-year-old thoroughbred gelding by Santiva, which I'm not familiar with actually. This is my first one by this sire, but Santiva is out of Giant's Causeway, who certainly I've had a bunch of a bunch of his. So sort of cool to have a slightly new sire to think about in the barn. And I have to say, if they're all like this horse, then I'm definitely a huge fan. So this horse is kind of like the whole thing. He's the whole package because he's big, he's beautiful, he's correct, he's a great mover, he's athletic. He's all the things that I think you want if you're looking for a horse to sort of develop up the levels. And he also just has a ridiculously sweet personality and a fantastic brain. Like he's the whole thing. He's a Christmas present, basically. So this is his very first post-track ride. He got here one day last week, so he's had probably 4 or 5 days to settle into things. He last raced on October 7th, so he last ran just about 2 weeks ago, and so he's feeling really good in his body. I think he looks great. I will say one funny thing about this ride is, well, he still has his racing plates on. So he still had a full set of aluminums on when we began this ride. And I didn't think his shoes were that loose, but apparently they were. And when we started this ride, we had 2 front shoes on and 2 back shoes. And when we ended the ride, we only had 2 hind shoes on. So, and usually I'm pretty aware of these things. So the shoes must have been loose because he, without me having any idea, he literally just stepped out of them. And then Billy found them in the ring and they were both exactly in the same spot. It was like in one step. He was just like, okay, I'm taking my shoes off now. And he just literally stepped out of both of his front shoes. And I never noticed. He never tripped. He never took a weird step to indicate. So yeah, for most of this ride, he was freshly barefoot in his front shoes, which is sort of hilarious. And obviously, he was sound and he felt fine to me, but I will definitely be excited to ride him again with 2 shoes on his front feet. So he was just such a good boy about that whole thing. So, just a very honest, genuine 3-year-old. I think this is a great time of year to buy a 3-year-old because obviously in about 2 months he'll be a 4-year-old and then he'll really be ready to sort of rock and roll on. And for the first couple of months, you don't want to go too hard on them anyway. So it's just like a super time of year to get a 3-year-old, a really special 3-year-old like him, to just sort of take your time with getting started for the rest of the year and through the winter. And then, in the spring as a 4-year-old, he should really be ready to go have some fun and start doing some stuff. And his brain will certainly allow for that. I mean, as will his movement. The horse is super correctly put together. Nice uphill conformation, especially considering he's still a growing 3-year-old. Speaking of the fact that he's a growing 3-year-old, he already sticks 16 2.5 hands. So I can't imagine. I mean, certainly he'll finish it at least at like 16.3. I would think he would get bigger than that. But I don't like to make some, wild uh, predictions about their height because, nobody has a crystal ball. But certainly he still has some more growing to do and he's already very big. He has a fabulous canter. That was such a good right lead canter transition. Interestingly, he was a little bit better about picking up the right lead than the left. With the left, I thought I was going to need to use a pole, which he was totally fine with, but actually we trotted over a couple of poles, and then he just stepped into the left lead canter transition on his own without even using the pole at all, which was totally fine, and he was a really good boy. By the time we got to the left canter, he was quite tired. That was the last thing we did. He actually really cracked me up because, he's this big athletic horse with a nice presence. And yesterday was quite a bit colder and windier. And so I took him out to the ring yesterday to do his sort of like introduction, get familiar with the ring. I'm going to put you on the lunge line and see what you're all about, that sort of thing yesterday. And he was like quite up and quite excited about it all. And he was that way for like, I don't know, 2 or 3 minutes. And then he was exhausted. So we stopped pretty quickly because he ran out of steam so fast. So then today, but today's a new day. So I thought I was going to have a rejuvenated horse. But hilariously, he's just quite a quiet type. And I think if he's doing any sort of regular work, his brain is going to be extremely easygoing because he took quite a bit of kicking and clucking. And I had to pick up a dressage stick. So just very much quiet in his brain and demeanor, which is fantastic because, of course, when you take a horse like this somewhere and you go to a horse show or to do whatever it is, they're of course they're going to get pumped up with some adrenaline, so they're going to sort of get a little bit more up at those sorts of things. So it's nice when you're starting with a quieter type, because then hopefully when they're in the newer environment and they're feeling excited, you just get just enough jazz to make them look even more extraordinary, but without losing the rideability. Of course, that's the dream anyway. That's what we're all hoping for. But he certainly has the disposition for that. So that being said, I mean, when I say horses are amateur friendly, of course, I'm talking about amateurs, right, that have experience working with young horses, amateurs with a good feel, amateurs with good balance, all those things. I'm not talking about amateurs. I'm not using that word in the sense of beginner, because obviously none of my horses are beginner appropriate. And of course, there are amateurs that are 5-star riders. So the scope of what it means to say that a horse is amateur friendly is sort of massive. He is amateur friendly in the sense that he is very kind and very genuine. And I do not feel a I don't feel a quirky bone in his body. Just seems like a very straightforward, well-intentioned horse to me. That being said, he's also gorgeous and athletic and very talented, and certainly talented enough, I think, for a professional or an amateur who wants a really nice horse to develop up the levels. So I think he is all the things. I mean, and the horse is moving beautifully, and he is barefoot, unintentionally barefoot in this video, which is just so funny. So here he is on cross eyes. He's wonderful on the ground. He's very itchy right now, so he's all about getting a good whole body scratch/massage. He loves that. He's definitely a type of horse that likes to be touched. There's no ear pinning or grouchiness of any kind. You can go over his whole body and he's gonna love it. He's a lover of all the attention, loves peppermints, has been very well behaved to handle on the ground. He was also great at the mounting block. We just didn't have any help out there yet, so no video of that. But this horse is like, he's the whole deal. He's a pretty cool, pretty sweet, lovable guy.